The home of the common Joe and the common Sally in the know, even more so than all those media talking heads. Well. What do we have here? It's another episode of the OCF. That's me, the Outlaw of College Football, also known as JPC. In today's class, I'm going to talk about the fact that I've been hearing through the grapevine, through numerous sources, 247 Sports being one of them, that we are possibly looking at a 2023 summer of 2023 decision on a possible expansion of the playoffs to maybe 8 to 12 teams. But before I get to all that, I'd like to ask you guys and gals to like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Down there by the download option is also a little heart that says thanks. Hit that heart, hit that thanks button, drop a few dollars in the coffers, and that way I don't have to depend on YouTube and their censoring ads as much. Now, getting right to it, it seems that from what they're saying at 247 Sports, that the deadline for an expanded playoff is not the end of the current contract, which ends and runs out in 2025. While that is the end date of the current contract, you can't wait till the thing runs out and then expand, because for something like this, a big undertaking like this, if you're going to include double the teams, maybe even triple, if you go to 12, then you're going to have to get down to the whole logistics of finding places to have these playoff games. Now, the big popular thing right now is that the first round would be held, and maybe possibly even the first two rounds, would be held on campus. If you go to 12 teams, what you would do is you would get the top 4 teams and you would give them a bye. From 5 to 12, you would have a first round wild card. I guess you'd call it like a wild card week in the NFL. That first round would have numbers 5 through 8 as the top seed in the first round of the wild card, of course, and they would play at an on-site campus location. Then when you got down to 8 teams, the top 4 teams as a reward for finishing in the top 4. Not only would they get a bye, they would also get an on-campus game. Then after that, you'd have the top 4, and then you would have 2 neutral locations, and then of course the championship game at a neutral location as well. That all sounds fine and well, but there's still a lot of caveats and hang-ups that could happen. Now, the ACC is saying that they're not willing to rubber stamp any kind of playoff until Jim Phillips of the ACC, their commissioner, has said that until they get in place some kind of regulations and some kind of new rules or system set up for this transfer portal and NIL stuff that's going on, that he doesn't want to address a playoff system, that this is the first thing they need to address. And usually I don't agree with the ACC and that loosely knit alliance that they call themselves, but I actually agree with this, that they do need to get that in check. Because who's to say that you don't get close to the playoffs and some team comes in and offers the best of the best from the other teams NIL contracts to come play for their team right then. I know that sounds crazy and wild, but there's got to be some kind of contracts or negotiations or some kind of trade agreements in place, sort of like the NFL. The way the NIL is going and stuff, it can't go unchecked. All these greedy relatives of the players and the agents that think that they should just be able to go free reign and just have no limitations, they're wrong. there's going to have to be some kind of limitations for fair play. Because it wouldn't be fair if, say, Alabama were to play Oklahoma in the first round of the playoffs, and Oklahoma went out and bought the best running back from Texas, like Bijan Robinson, come over and play for Oklahoma during the playoffs. So there's got to be something in place to show that these playoffs are not going to be tainted or tampered with. There's just a lot of stuff that goes into this NIL transfer portal thing that we've not yet begun to even think about. So that is a good point. In that the Big Ten and the Pac-12, I don't think the Big 12 necessarily is wanting this or exactly is pushing it. But they may be in tow as well. But the Pac-12 and the Big Ten, the ACC, all want automatic qualifiers as well. That I'm not really sure I'm down with. Because if you have a conference for some reason 1 year where there's just a bunch of average to mediocre teams, you have a bunch of teams that go 9-3 or 8-4, then your conference doesn't deserve an automatic qualifier, in my opinion, at that point. So I don't think automatic qualifiers should be a thing, and that's the thing that you keep trying to get hung up on. But I think now, with the threat that Greg Sankey made, along with a little bit of support from Jim Swarbrick of Notre Dame, that the SEC and Notre Dame may secede and form a super league, that right there has gotten people in a tizzy, and it's gotten their attention. And now, all of a sudden, they are wanting to get this thing done. And from what they're saying, numerous reports, is that they want to get this thing done by the summer of 2023 and have something in place. So like I said, they can get all the logistics out of the way, give them a few years to get the logistics out of the way as far as setting up for a much bigger playoff and having the correct locations in place. Also, if they do end up having automatic qualifiers, shouldn't they have an automatic qualifier for the best non-Power 5 team as well? If we're going to keep this fair and across the board for these teams that are all considered Division 1. If not, they need to drop down and form a different division. So that all that being said, I think that the threat by the SEC Commissioner, Greg Sankey, and the AD at Notre Dame, I think his name's Jack Swarbrick or Jim. Anyway, his last name's Swarbrick. They have made the threat, have made a laced threat that they may indeed secede if this thing doesn't grow legs and start taking off a little bit. So I think in the end, in 2023, they will come to an agreement. And I think it'll probably end up being a 12-team playoff like they've been talking about, with the first 2 rounds on campus, which I think would be great for college football. But anything past 12, I'm not down with. These people wanting to go to 16 and 32 teams because 1AA does it that way, or FCS or FBI or CIA or whatever acronym they call that shit today, I'm not down with all those teams. So, in the end, I think that's what will happen, though. They'll end up going with 12 teams, and I think it'll get done by the summer of 2023, hopefully. And I also think, this is not really involving the playoff scenario here, but I also think that by 2024 or 2023 possibly, that Texas and Oklahoma will be in the SEC by then, because the Big 12 is bringing on those new teams, and I think something's going to be worked out in that deal as well. And that's all I got to say about that. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel. And as always, KMCA to all the other teams. Class is now dismissed.